Greetings. We've been really busy around this house lately, trying to get ready for Imbolc, which is coming up over the weekend. And we're trying to finish up some housekeeping that we want to do, especially for the Sabbath, before we leave town. We're going to be actually celebrating the Sabbath out of town with some friends, and but that doesn't mean we don't want to have our home ready to go. And so I thought I would bring you along a little bit and share with you some of the things that we're doing. These are things that we do. Keep in mind, these are not things that I say everybody needs to do. Certainly not. Everybody has their own habits. But I want to tell you what we do and why we do it. I just realized I looked in my playlist, in my here on YouTube. Since I've come on, I think the last time I did anything for Imbolc was 2015. I'm not sure. At any rate, I apologize for that. I wasn't sure that if anybody would be interested. But anyway, I thought I would tell you what we do and why we do it this year. And so let's get started. I wanted to tell you a little bit what behind some of the reasoning for what we do. This is the time of the year when it's just starting to become spring. It's not spring yet in our modern world, but coming up coincidentally the same date as Imbolc, a lot of people in this country celebrate Groundhog's Day, which is something that I was used to when I was a child. Punxsutawney Phil used to come out and tell us if there was going to be an early spring or if there was going to be 6 more weeks of winter. This is the time that a lot of people, at least I was when I was cooped up in snow, start to think about the weather turning warmer and start to think about getting ready for that time. And why do we need to get ready? Well, I know when I was a child we needed to get ready because there was a lot of things to do, changes that were going to happen in the house. The house had been shut up all winter, and it needed some airing out. We had a very complicated world back then in some ways, that we had windows in the house, and on every window there had to be a storm window put on the outside, and on the doors there were storm doors. And when it came time for spring, those had to be taken off before the windows could be opened, and then the screens had to be put back in the window so that if you opened the window for fresh air, you wouldn't be letting in the bugs. So, that was a lot of work, because then all those had to be washed, and it was the time the rugs that were picked up, the old rugs, particularly area rugs, had to be picked up and taken out and put over the line and beat the dirt out of them and getting in it. My mother used to make a big deal, even cleaning out every drawer, every nook and cranny in our house had to be cleaned. Well, I'm not talking about that today when I talk about our housekeeping, but I am talking about clearing out, which is what we do at Imbolc. Okay, we take that old, dusty, whatever it was, and we replace it with something new. Okay, the very idea of life in a garden is what we're talking about, because we want to see that historically we're talking about Celtic practices. At least in my practice, we're talking about the ancient Celts, and to them this was the time of the year that was hopeful. It was time of hope, because the lambs were starting to be born. It was time nearly for the lambs to come. The ewes were coming into milk, the calves, the cows. We started to see things coming up, popping up in the fields. Some herbs and wildflowers and things started to peek up their heads, and these were really important. Not only were herbs used for medicines and things, but if you had been eating pottage all winter long, and you had long used up all the bits of your vegetables that had been in storage and fruits that had been in storage, and maybe some of your dried things, and you've just been subsisting. Maybe even you don't have any meat left. You've been subsisting. Milk was long gone. You've been subsisting on just plain oats or plain barley pottage or something, maybe with a little broth in it, maybe not. When those herbs started to come up, and the wildflowers started to come up, all of a sudden you had some seasonings, some fresh seasonings to put into your pot. So those were really important times, and those were welcomed, and it was a sign of hope. The days were starting to get a little bit longer. They've been gradually getting longer from that darkness. A little bit more light returning every day. Maybe you had some spells of some warmth coming in the day. Sometimes not that bitter cold. So it was a really important time. Okay. And modern day, we still are, even here in California, when we are in our gardens, talking about our gardens, even though we grow things most of the year, this is the time that we're really getting into making sure that we have our spring garden in place, and we're starting seedlings for the summer garden. And if you don't have that weather, you still have a lot of snow ahead of you. A lot of people are growing things indoors, starting things indoors. The seed catalogs are all in the mail. It's that time of hope and anticipation. Okay? So we do the same thing in our homes. Here we welcome this growth. We welcome the returning of the light by doing certain things. It's a time to let go of the old to make new for the new. And today I'm going to be showing you some of those things that we do. It is also the time, I want to say before I show you the things we're working on, it is the time to honor the goddess Brigid for the Celts, who is a triple goddess, the goddess of fire, goddess of the sun, and the goddess of the hearth. She was in all the aspects shown, personified in all the aspects of Maiden, Mother, and Crone. But at this time of the year, it is the aspect of the maiden. The crone is now gone, and it is the maiden, and that we see that with the idea of the coming of the maturity, coming of the fertility, the growing fertility, and the the promise of new birth, the promise of new things to come. Okay, so what we're going to be doing here in the video, we're going to be getting rid of the old. We have had a Yule wreath on our front door, just a plain green wreath. It's no Christmas decorations or any kind, but it's greenery. It's been on our door since a little bit before Yule, and today it comes down. We're going to take it down, and we're going to burn that. Get rid of the old, make room for the new, and we're going to put that in our fire pit, and then we're going to be keeping the ash. We're going to be taking the ash from the fire pit. We're going to be taking that and the ash from our hearth fire and some ash from our outdoor fire pit and kitchen. And I think I've told you this before. And then my husband takes it and walks the perimeter and does a blessing on the property, a blessing of protection on the property, particularly around the chicken yard. He's doing that. We're burning the wreath. We are sacrificing the old, putting it back into the ground. We're taking that and putting it back into the ground. We also are taking a corn dolly, and I'm going to show you that later in a minute. That was made at Lammas. We typically make corn dollies at Lammas. Lammas is the first grain, first harvest, the grain harvest. We make a corn dolly out of corn husk. We use corn husk, and then we keep her until Imbolc, and at Imbolc we burn her, and she is sacrificed. She is sacrificed to make way for the maiden. This is something that symbolizes something that the Celts did, where they took some of the last of the first harvest of the grain, whatever they did not keep, they burned, and it was taken and it was returned into the earth for new growth. Turn in. If you've ever heard the song or the story of John Barleycorn, that's what that is about. That's what it's about. Okay? We're going to do that. We're also going to be making I'm going to show you how I'm going to make a Brigid's cross. A Brigid's cross is something that is typically made of reed or wheat or something. Sometimes corn husk, often corn husk. I'm going to show you how to make them today. And we keep those by the door. We keep them by the door it's like a blessing, a house blessing, and we're going to take down the old ones. Well, actually, I don't have any old ones. I want to say right now I don't have any old ones at my door because of our remodeling. But normally we would take down the old ones. That would be burned as well, and the new one would go in its place. So I'm going to show you that. I'm hoping to get through it quickly. I hope this isn't too long a video, but I just thought you might be interested. So you know what we're doing. If you're not interested, shut me off. If you are, stay tuned. I'll be right back. I realize there's a little bit of confusion among some of you as to what point of the year we are speaking of when we refer to the term Imbolc. And Imbolc, here we see Imbolc here on this. I found a graphic of the wheel of the year that I thought was pretty simplistic, so it might be able to show you. What are we talking about? Some of us see Imbolc described as both midwinter and as spring, and that's very confusing for many people. We're wondering what that is, what that could possibly be. And what I want to say is, for many of the Celtic people, I want to maybe explain it this way. The new year did not begin until Samhain. Samhain, actually, October 31st, after Samhain, which is true for many witches. Many witches call Samhain the beginning of the new year. After Samhain, we settle into the winter. On the wheel, if I would put my pen down here, anything on the side of the pen is considered technically, would have been considered technically in early Celtic, in the Celtic world anyway, to be winter. And anything on this side of the pen, as I would put the pen down, on this side of the pen would be considered to be summer. Okay, so they either summer or winter. It was either a time when we were in the dark, cold part of the winter, or we were in the warm summer part of the winter. We were we're waiting for the light. We're in the dark, we're in the cold, or we're in the growing season of the year. A lot of these festivals had to do with, because these were people that, lived with, herds of cattle or sheep or whatever. Farming, they were farming communities, and so farming individuals. So that was a big part of their life, and they had these festivals to mark the times. Now, the only reason I'm bringing this up is if we would take a line between Samhain and Beltane, which marks the beginning of summer on the early calendar, and we would go midway between Samhain and Beltane, we come to Imbolc and Lammas. Do you see that on the wheel? Okay, these are known actually as the cross-quarter days. The reason that they're called the cross-quarter days is if we were to divide the wheel into four, if we were to divide it according to the solstices and the equinoxes, we have the solstices being Yule and Litha, and the equinoxes being Mabon and Ostara, the time of the equinoxes, the summer and fall equinox. Whatever is left over, the midway between those would be the cross-quarter days. Okay, do we see that? And the cross-quarter days are the festivals that are celebrated. These are the ones that they don't really have anything to do necessarily with the number of daylight hours. Like the equinoxes and the solstices, it's either dealing with the smallest amount of light or the greatest amount of light or equal light and darkness. But these have to do with, the cross-quarter days have to do with what's going on in the world of these people that were considered to be farmers or, raising animals or crops, okay? So here we have the new year, the beginning of the winter coming at Samhain, and the beginning of summer coming at Beltane, and in between, halfway, we have Imbolc. And those of you, at least in America and in the United States, we know Imbolc to correspond in date to Groundhog's Day. And you've seen me before talk about this because I'm originally from Pennsylvania. And Groundhog's Day is a really big holiday in Pennsylvania where the groundhog comes out. Punxsutawney Phil comes out and looks for his shadow on February 2nd, Groundhog's Day. And if he sees his shadow, there will be 6 more weeks of winter. And if he does not see it, early spring, that's a way of forecasting. And if we look at 6 more weeks of winter, what comes up and about 6 weeks, a little bit, is Ostara. It's the beginning, is the spring equinox, and that is actually when spring technically begins in our calendar now of 4 seasons. Okay, so about midway through, between the beginning of winter and the beginning of summer, where we have Imbolc, we start to see changes. The farmers would start to see changes. This is the time when the ewes were going to give birth to the lambs, and the lambs were being born, and the milk was flowing within the lamb, and milk was returning in their culture. They've been without milk for all these months, and now they have milk again in their to go through, and there are going to be new lambs and new calves to replace the ones that were butchered before the winter set in, the ones that they could not keep over winter. So this was a really big important time, and so there were celebrations and everything. So when we talk about, I don't want to go into a big lot of history, but when we go talk about it, I just want you to see it on the wheel and see where it falls and understand that. So when we talk about Imbolc as a time, Lammas was the time of the first harvest, and we harvested the wheat. We formed the corn dolly from the wheat, and we kept it, and at Imbolc, we were ready to burn it. Because now, here comes spring. Here comes a new crop. It is time to plant new wheat. It is time to plant new corn. It is time to plant new crops. Okay? So I just thought it'd make it a little easier if you could see it. I don't know if that helps you or not, but it sometimes helps. I'm a very visual person, so if I can see it in a graphic like this, it makes a little more sense to me. So, hope that helped. Unfortunately, I'm not able to show you a Brigid's cross that I would have been burning this year due to the Great Remodeling Project of 2019. I will be burning Brigid's cross in a public ritual, though. We still have that tradition, but not the one that is in our house. But I did want to show you, for some of you who might be concerned, number one, about what a Brigid's cross actually looks like, since I don't have one to show you. Here's a picture I just got off of the internet. This one is made of, at least looks like it is made in the original style, which would be a reed, fresh reeds cut from the bogs of Ireland. And there's several good videos on YouTube that show actual cutting the reeds and making the crosses, which I'll try to put a link down below so that you can see in the description box. But anyway, I think you can see I think you've seen this. You're very familiar now that you see the photo. You're very familiar with the image. But we don't have the bogs here in Southern California. So I really can't make this one. I have made them in the past using wheat rather than reeds, and that has worked. We also make them very often using corn husks. Corn husks that are, of course, softened like we would if we were going to make a corn dolly in warm water. Let to soak in warm water for a while till they soften, and then folded and made. But unfortunately, those you can just make small ones. You can't make anything too elaborate. And the corn husks are, you have to really have a nice sturdy husk to work with. That's a little problematic in itself. I've seen them made out of other things like pipe cleaners and I don't know what else. But the purpose of the Brigid's cross, just like the corn dolly, is that it's made of natural materials, because eventually, in whatever period, it should be disposed of. It should be burned, actually. It should be burned. It's meant to be burned. And something like a weed, after a year hanging in your house, is dry and can be burned easily. And corn husks, of course, can be burned easily. Pipe cleaners can be burned. So I would just think about that. If you want to use it like for traditional purposes, you want to really think about the materials you use. If you just wanted to, to use it in another way of just for your intention, that's fine. You can dispose of it in another way. I have seen people on the internet suggests that you use things like straws to form them. Well, I thought, that's a really good idea. However, I was thinking of the paper straws that we had in grade school, elementary school, that used to come with our carton of milk, that were nice, soft paper, flimsy paper, easily manipulated, easily, formed, etc. And then, unfortunately, through the years, that has given way to plastic straws, which I had a great amount of plastic straws in my house, a nice supply of them, because unfortunately for my youngest daughter, she went through the period of time that she had braces on her teeth to correlate with the same time she was of legal age to drink. And if you know me, you know my children have the same affinity for red wine as I do, and red wine is very staining on teeth. It's a no-no. Drinks, staining liquids are a no-no when you are wearing braces on your teeth. And so she got into the habit of drinking red wine with a straw. And so we had a supply of straws in the house, which worked out pretty well, except she doesn't use them anymore, and we now use them. Then we use them for, summer drinks when we had parties, etc. But I hate the thought of a plastic straw. They are not biodegradable. They cannot be recycled. They are just filling up our landfill, which is irresponsible to me. So there's a lot of laws now in action that those plastic straws are to be discontinued, and we're coming back with paper. I was excited. I thought, well, I'll find some paper and we will make paper straws. And I was able to find some at a local Target store. Where could everybody find them if they did not have access to Reed or Rush? This Reeds or whatever they had. Could they still make a corn dolly? Yes, you can. You can use paper straws. These are 100 paper straws, super sippers they're called. I found them at Target. If you're in the States, you can get them, should be able to get them from Amazon from Target if you have one nearby. If not, you could get them off of Amazon or I'm sure other places. But these are from the Smartly company. I'm not endorsing any company, but there's 100 one-time use paper straws in this package. Cool deal, right? It's a cool deal. And so we picked these up thinking this is going to be perfect for my corn dollies. For my Brigid crosses. Except what we found was these straws. Let me get one out of the box for you. Are sturdy. If you remember, if you were even alive, I don't know, during the time when we used paper straws in school, you might recall that, it was a challenge to get to the bottom of your milk carton before your paper straw deteriorated right in front of your eyes. It was they broke down very easily. They were very thin paper, and I really messed up that box. These straws that we got to make this corn dollies out are very substantial. These will last. They're one-time uses, but they will really last. They're not going to, I think the idea is to make them nice and rigid so people don't get into that. Excuse me a minute. Psst. Psst. Get down. Psst. Get down. 2 bad cats. Oh, 2 bad cats in one kitchen. Sorry. Anyway, these are very substantial, and they're good to drink out of. A little problematic for making a corn dolly. Not necessarily problematic, but as you will see, in order to make the corn dolly, we have to have flat. We're going to bend it, and we're going to put it together like it would be a reed. So, and this, as we see, is not flat. It is round, but I can flatten it within my fingers. But oh my, it's really resistant to being flattened. Because it wants to be substantial so you can drink from it. You can't drink through something that's flat. So I can take my thumb down the length of this, and it will flatten. But it's kind of hard on my arthritic hands, I'll tell you. So, but you were able to do it, and maybe you have some kind of a tool that will help you. I'm not sure. I'm sure most of you are much younger than me and have better luck. But the idea is to get it nice and flat. What I did, instead of going through all of my straws, I simply asked my husband to flatten them. And he flattened them. He wasn't real happy about it either, but he did flatten them. We want them kind of nice and flat. Okay, because then we can bend them, and then you see they're going to weave together. Okay. The other thing that we want to say is, I don't know whether you want to call this an arm or a leg, but in the traditional Brigid's crosses, these legs, these of the Brigid's cross, are longer. We have them because the reed is longer, or whatever you use is usually longer than a straw, and so we have excess, and we're able, and also it's flexible enough that we can bind them together at the ends, and then we can cut them even. Okay, so we have enough room to really do the weaving. The straw, you're limited. You're a little bit limited. And if I was going to make one out of reed or wheat or something like that, I would probably use 16 of these straws. That's a lot to flatten. In my case, I think we only used, I found 12 to be enough, because what I did was when I flattened these straws, I was able to make a really nice, I think a really nice adequate Brigid's cross using, I think I have 12 in here. Okay, it's cute. It works. It works. And it's substantial enough that I'm going to be able to hang this at my door, and it's going to offer some great protection for the year, and then it's also going to be able to go in my fire next year at Imbolc and be burned without polluting anybody or putting toxic chemicals into the air any more than necessary. It's natural things, and we can burn that without gassing ourselves. So that's really nice. It'll go into the fire nicely. It won't melt like sun and put off toxic fumes like synthetic materials might do. So I really like that option of using, of making this cross out of these paper drinking straws. So I'm going to show you how I did it. It's really not hard. It's very simple to do. I hope you can follow me. I got the directions. I'm going to put the video below. I kind of followed this man's video and how to do it, but we really do start out with 2. He starts out with 2. Let's say we're going to have 12. So let me see how many. I want to. I'm going to count out first to make sure I only have 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, I had a couple extra. And what we're going to do with these 12, we want to get them folded. After they're flattened, we want to fold them in half. Now you can pre-fold them. That's pretty nice, easy to do. I've pre-folded a couple of them, but I wanted to show you that you don't have to pre-fold them, that you can fold them as you go. It's a little more challenging, but in case you forget to fold them, you can. And the other thing I want to show you is I'm kind of a perfectionist, and I really wanted mine to line up as evenly as they could at the end here, at this end. So I actually wanted to mark a center point with a little pencil so that I knew how to fold them. And also it helped me, if I had them marked, it would be easy for me to do one-handed as I was holding together. You'll see what I mean, what I mean by that. So I'm going to take, and I'm going to get ready for that in case I want to do that. I'm putting this paper here because the ruler that I use to find my center mark is clear, as you can see, is one of these clear things. If I put it down on here, I can't even see the ruler, let alone the lines. So I want to see the marks. I want to see the marks, but I also want to be able for you to see the straw on the table. If I put the straw on the paper, can't really see it. I'm trying to be better about my my camera angles. So what I would do is I would take, and I know how long my straw is, so I would take and find the center point, and I would mark it. Put a little mark here. That's my center. So you can see I marked my center. So I would do that for all of my straws, so that I have that little line marked, just to make it easier for me to do this a little, because once you see, you're going to see when I get going, it's going to be a little bit of a trick to hold the ridges crossed together and to securely so it doesn't fly apart, and to maneuver the straws at the same time. It's not quite so bad with reeds, I think, because you don't have to press so firmly to hold it together. But here, because we have these pretty substantial drinking straws, we have to have a little bit. Oh wait, what did I have here? We have to have, now they don't have to be exactly in the center, but since I'm trying to be a little more deliberate, when you're using something like a long reed, you don't have to do this because the reed is plenty long enough. If you're estimating the center point, you're close enough because you're going to get rid of excess anyway. But I don't have a lot of excess. My straws are only a certain length, and I've got to have it long enough that I can fold them and still have enough to work with. So I just kind of did that. See how that goes. So I'm going to take my straws now, and according to the man in the video, I'm sorry I don't recall his name, what he did was he just lined up the center of two straws, and he just made a cross. He made a cross in the center. And then he took and folded, one was folded. Now you can pre-fold these, like I said, pre-fold them all in half. You don't need to do that. But there's no reason you can't. It's much easier if they're pre-folded, but I'm going to pre-fold some. I have some pre-folded and some not, so that in case you're like me and forget to do it, you can always go back and do it. Okay, so anyway, he kind of holds it, and it's not that big of a deal because this one is going to come, it's not going to be hooked on. But you're going to take it over the one on top, which is the newest one, and we're just going to fold it and bring it down. And we're going to line that up kind of with the center. I'm keeping my mark sort of in the center here. And as you can see, this isn't really held, it's not held on there yet. Right? I'm just kind of pretending it is because I want to just estimate it. Now I'm going to pinch this together. I'm going to hold this really tight, and I'm going to turn it. And then we're going to take another one, fold it in half, and I'm going to go over both of these legs, both of the legs, with the one that is new on the top. So I'm going to fold that over. Right here. And I'm really going to pinch that together. And now we can see that I can kind of let go of it as long as I hold the new one down. And here I can take this one which is still loose and has not been folded and move it back up to center. I hope that's not confusing. I'm just trying to keep them as straight and centered as I can. Now as you can see, I have to hold here because if I don't hold here, that's going to come apart. That's the last one I put in there. So I'm holding here, and I'm going to keep pinching that, pinching rather hard. Turn it so that this new one is on top. I'm going to take the one that's folded and put it down over top of that. Lay it right beside, align it right beside. You see, we're not actually weaving. We are actually just applying them to the top. Now I have to hold here, and you will not have a problem knowing which one to hold because if I let go of that, the whole thing is going to come apart. But you see, I can hold it just like this. And if something happened that I had to let go of this for some reason, I keep a clothespin handy, so I can just do that, lay it down, and I can walk away if I had to. If my pot's boiling over, my, cat's eating my glasses, or my dog needs to go out, or whatever, I can walk away from it. So those are good to have handy. Excuse me. So now, as we can see, this one is the one that is new. I'm going to just turn it so that I can put another one over top of it. Just up to that, there's that fold. Lay it right down parallel and as snug up against the one in the middle as I can get. Now as you can see, I have formed my first square around the center. Kind of cool, huh? So it looks pretty good. Now at this point, I could clip this off, put it down, and because I have some more that need to be folded. And to fold them, I have the pencil mark. I put my thumbnail in there and push and fold it over with my finger. And then, you know, it's close enough. It's not exactly right. If I was going to be really weird about it, I could try to get it a little closer. But, you know, it's not necessary because they're not that, we're not completely flat. We're kind of round. Okay, so I could do that. I could do that again to show you. There's my pencil mark. And I just push it with my fingernail. And that one's a little better. Okay. Or I can do it as I'm going, which I will show you with the next ones as I'm going. In case you forget and you don't have a clothespin and you don't want to lay it down, I'll show you what you do. Okay, so I had my clothespin holding it. Take the clothespin off, and that kind of helps. The clothespin actually helps flatten it a little bit, you know, so it kind of makes it good. This is my one that's open. You see? It's open. So that's the one I have to cover first. That's how you know where you are. You're not going to get mixed up. And I take a folded one, put it over that, bring it the whole way down, parallel with the ones beside. Okay? And I turn it. I bring it down over the new one. Bring it down. Turn it. Bring it down over the new one. Keep it parallel. Keep it as snug as I kind of can keep it. Flattening it down as I go. Turn it. Oh, look, I forgot to do it. I forgot to do it. Look, I can do it one-handed. I can just stick it with my thumbnail. Push it down like that. Get that fold in there. Line it up. And put it in. See how that worked? It worked really nicely. Wasn't that hard? It gets harder to hold as you go on. And here's one. And I found while I'm at it, I have one more left, and I want to show you that I didn't even mark this one, so I have to go back and mark it. Forgot to mark it, but I can do that with one hand. It's okay because I have everything in front of me, and meanwhile I'm holding it, and I can do it with one hand, or remember, look what I can do. I can put the clothespin on it. I can put that clothespin on it and hold it while I do this. So it's not a tragedy. There are no tragedies in making a Brigid's cross. Okay, so again, we're going to fold that. So I have two to do. I have that one. Well, I guess I have one to do. The one that I just clipped on here. And I have one more to do. And the only thing that is different about this is my final one. And it is my final one, remember, because I'm only using 12. If you're using 16, you're going to keep going to get to the final one. And we're going to do it exactly the same to begin with. We're going to lay it over the new one. Okay, it's going to go there. But before we do that, we need to secure the ends. So I'm going to take the one, it would normally be going down here beside this. But since it's the last one, I'm going to put it inside that loop. So I'm going to push this up a little bit. You see how I pushed that up and made a little opening? So I made that little opening right there. I'm going to take this like it's going to go over here. But I'm going to put the ends together and have the ends go inside that loop. So they're both ends are coming through. See how they're both coming through there? Can you see that? Coming through, and I push it down, and oh, it's locking it all into place. And then it's just a matter of me going around and tidying it up a little bit, just make it a little bit tidy. And it looks pretty good. And then I will go, since I'm going to hang these by the door, there we go, it's finished. Like I said, if you're going to do 16, go around again before you tidy up that last one, before you secure the last end. And the straws actually hold really well. These are good. This really works really for locking everything in. And there's really no front or back to it. Whatever side you think looks best, you might want to hang out first. I think this one maybe is. But I would just take and I would just make a hole. I would just make a hole with an awl or something, or some kind of a nail. And then I could hang that up over the door. And then next, here at Imbolc, I will take this one down, put it in the fire, and I'll have a new one that goes up in its place. Okay? Pretty simple, isn't it? And pretty fun. Some of you who have been watching my channel for a long time might remember that when I've mentioned corn dolly, my corn dollies before in the past, that I have showed this corn dolly to you on several instances. This is our corn dolly that we keep on our altar that we dedicate to Brigid in the parlor, starting at Imbolc. We started at Imbolc, and we keep it there till about Lammas time. Then she comes off. I want to say the reason that we do this, I want to remind you, the Festival of Imbolc also marks the time in the Wheel of the Year where the goddess is no longer in the crone image, the stage of the crone, but she's now back, and we are honoring the maiden at the time of Imbolc. So this is the time that we begin to honor her, and this is a corn dolly, an actual corn dolly that I made, I don't know how many years ago, that we have used every year. She is not, when I mention burning a corn dolly, I do not burn her. I'm not to say that she will not ever be burned. By the time she's fully had given us a good, her better years, we will probably replace her and with a new corn dolly, and she will then maybe be burned. But right now she's not. She's a very important part of our altar. It has been for years and years. I would hate to give that up. I just wanted to show you that corn dollies can be as simple or as elaborate as you choose them to be. I just have become attached to her. She's not simple. She's not that difficult to make. She was not that difficult to make, but she was. I just have fallen in love with her. I love her little sweet face, which she doesn't even have really a face. And so I'm going to try to zoom in here so you can get a little closer to her to show a little bit more detail on her. If you bear with me, I'm really not very good at this. We can see I did a lot of, I fashioned her in a simple way that I will show you in a minute. But then when I formed her arms, as you can see her arms here in the front, the arms, instead of just putting a straight arm piece, I did braid that. I braided some corn dollies together, and the other arm is, and while it was still damp, I formed her. I sort of posed her, because as they dry, they become very rigid. So you can kind of take the opportunity to pose them while they are still damp and do whatever you want. So at the same time as I was forming her, I let her dry over top of a bottle. I think I used a bottle. I don't know what I used, or a jar or something, so that her skirt, when dry, will hold her up. Her skirts are separated in a way that she forms as a solid foundation, even though she doesn't have a bottom on her. It's just skirts, which I can show you that in a minute if you need to see it, but you can take my word for it. It's just her skirt that is flared out in such a way that she will stand. And then I have taken more corn husks and just shredded them up to her waist. So those corn husks, the corn husk shreds going down along her skirt sides, sort of cover up those openings in the bottom of her skirt where it might be separated a little bit and flared. It's pretty closed, but just in case I have it, and it gives her even more full volume. Then I took some smaller corn husks and I did the braiding there around her head. for her hair, like her hair would be braided. I just took long, thin strips of corn husk and I braided it. Oops, I'm going to go forward. Bring it in. There you can see the detail. You can see the detail, how it's braided. And I really love it, but I see, when I say she has a sweet face, she doesn't have a face at all, but of course, to me, she has a very sweet face. And like I said, she stands on our altar for most of the year. Not for most of the year, for half of the year, about half of the year. Give or take. It depends on our mood, what I want to put on the altar. But she's around. She's around. Okay. Since I already have this corn dolly ready for this year's burning, I'm not going to show you how to make one, but it's such a simple process that I should be able to explain it. You should be able to understand it. And if you don't, it's very easily found all over the internet. People make them all the time. You need the corn husks. The corn husks are readily available in most, you can get them at craft stores, but I get mine at the market. Like, you know, for making tamales, we have corn husks all the time at the markets. I don't know if you do or not where you live, but if you don't, you can get them at a craft store, or you can get them at through Amazon or whatever. You can get them. But anyway, you can see they're quite rigid when they're dry, and that's the trick. And that's what I was talking about when I showed you the one that we made. I fanned her skirts out and then let them dry that way, and then she's able to stand up. But this one is very simple. This is a typical one, the type that you would make if you were intending to burn it every year. I wouldn't go to a big grand thing, but of course, you know, we make these, we usually make them at Lammas. At least in our family, we make them at Lammas with the first harvest, with the, you know, to represent the grain as it is cut for the wheat harvest at Lammas time. And the, you know, it is the dying, it is the crone stage, beginning to be the crone stage of the goddess. And so we take her out and we form this corn dolly, and she stays in our homes somewhere, usually by the fire. You know, you can keep them anywhere. You can keep them, you can display them like if you have a fireplace, it's nice to have it on the hearth fire, or you can put it, you know, near your altar, or just keep her in the cupboard. She doesn't have to be displayed. There's no reason she has to be displayed. But you keep her, and then again at Imbolc, then she would be burned, because the period of the crone is finished and it's time for the maiden. So at any rate, and it is the sacrifice of the old, sacrificing to make way for the new, that theme that we get all the time over and over and over again in the Wheel of the Year. Now, what I do want to say about her is very simply done. This one, I see in her head that we just folded over and tied, I think we tied short corn husks together on the ends and then folded them inside out, which is why her head is this way. Sometimes you're fortunate enough to have long corn husks, and if you are, you can nearly fold them over for the torso part, and then just cover up over, if you cover up the ends with the bodice, then you can make a new skirt. You can make a part with a skirt. And I used to do this kind of a thing down here with the skirt, where I would put the skirts over her head, tie around it, and then before it is dry, pull them down over the tie so you would not see the tie. And then her skirts would fan out over the tie. That might sound complicated, but if you start to if you look on the internet and you try to look at how to make a corn dolly on the internet, you're going to see all different kinds of ways. And I want to tell you that it doesn't matter. The object of the game is you're going to have something in the head, something in the bodice. You're going to have something coming across for the arms. This is just simply, you see how this is loose? This is just folded or rolled up corn husk that has been tied and trimmed so that it resembles hands. But whereas when I just showed you, this part would be braided. It would be corn husks together to braid it to make arms. You can do anything you want to. But you don't want to put an armature inside. You don't want to put any skeleton inside. Some people say, oh, you can wrap it around wire in something fashion. You don't need to do that, and you should not do that. If you're going to burn it, it should just be natural materials. Okay? Now, I want to make a point that many people use cotton balls inside the head and inside the bodice. And that would sound wonderful if cotton balls were actually made of cotton. But in doing my research, I have found that cotton balls are not usually made of cotton anymore. That would be too simplistic. Cotton balls now are made of usually a dyed synthetic of some kind, a nylon or some other kind of an acrylic that is made to look like cotton because we don't want to use real cotton. So, if you're going to be burning it, that is your choice. If you want to burn chemicals and you want to release those kind of toxins, or you want to go to the trouble, which you can, of finding real cotton balls made of real cotton. They do make those. They're a little harder to find. Or you can use something organic. You can just wad up some cotton fabric or some linen fabric or some wool fabric, make a little ball, and make the head and the bodice, to pad it a little bit so she has a little bit of padding to her. So she's not completely flat. Of course, she could be completely flat, but her head needs to have some kind of shape to it. And this one, if you look really carefully, you can see inside of this one, there's a walnut. We actually formed her head over a walnut. So in that case, that's what you would do with the dampened corn husk. Now, in case I'm going to forward too quickly without giving you the basics, you take those corn husks out of the package that you buy them in. You get some warm water in a bowl. You just throw some corn husks in there and let them sit, walk away for a while. And you will see as they get wet and absorb the water, they will eventually soften. Then they're very pliable. They're easy to tear. They're easy to form and mold. You mold them how you want to, and then when you're finished, let them dry. If you want to position arms, like instead of they stick out like this, if you want to bend the arms or whatever you want to do, or you want to flare out the skirt like I did to make her stand up. See, these do not stand up. You do that and then let it dry in that position and it will stand up. But you don't have to have it. If you're just going to put it near your fireplace, you can stick that up against a pot or anything, on your fireplace, or, hang it, put it on a nail, or hang it, put a loop on her head and let her hang, and do anything you want just to keep her until the following year when you're going to then burn her. But I like the idea of using something natural within it. And then again, if you're going to use something to tie, like you want to tie the arms or whatever, here we used yarn when we made these. These were done with a group. We used yarn. I don't believe this is wool, but if I were going to use yarn, I would use real wool, something of my hand spun if I were going to make it again. And I would use just strips of corn husk, or I would use raffia, some kind of raffia or cotton cording to tie, something that we know is natural that will burn easily. Okay? So at any rate, the corn dolly, not like, where we had the Brigid's cross, we put up at Imbolc. We left her up for a year. We replaced it at Imbolc with a new Brigid's cross and burned it. The corn dolly, traditionally, at least in our practice, is made at Lammas time. She is kept however you want to do it, either stored away or stored in public until Imbolc, where she is burned. She is burned at that time. Okay? And that is the sacrifice of the crone, sacrificing the old, making room for the new maiden to come with the spring. Okay? Okay, so there you have it. I wasn't able to show you, I'm not able to show you the burning of the wreath and the burning of the corn dolly or the spreading of the ash, but believe me when I tell you it is done, it's being done. I didn't want to make this could have been a 2-hour video, and it's a little boring to watch something burn, I think. But at any rate, we do this without fail every year. This whole idea of taking something, building up a new intention out of the old, is something that we have done all our lives without realizing it. Not in the pagan tradition, but, people, by making the very fact that they make, at New Year's time, in our society, today, our modern society, People make resolutions in the new year, and the whole idea of getting rid of the old and welcoming the new is something that's very familiar to all of us. So Imbolc should be just a natural, something that comes to us naturally. Laying intentions at Imbolc and allowing growing your intentions at Imbolc should be something that's a very easy concept for us to understand. We've all started out the new year, whether it could have been at Samhain or it could have been on January 1st or whenever it was. All of us have that idea of changing. Maybe if it's not a resolution, it's this year I will, this year I want to, this year whatever, blah, 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 fill in the blank. A lot of us even get a word of the year we choose so that we can set a mood, set a theme for the year. So it gives us a direction. We have a direction to grow towards. This whole idea of that, continuing to grow, whatever we plant, whatever intentions are planted, this is the time, it's a peak time to really make sure that things are moving in the right direction. So if you've been sitting around in a slump since you made your intentions or since you made your resolutions or whatever it is you have done, and you haven't really done anything towards it, this is the time I bet you are starting to feel like, oh, I got to get moving. Maybe you said, I'm going to lose weight in the new year, and you've been sitting around eating the cookies, which we did, I have to say, it was horrible. We were supposed to freeze them. We had more than we needed, and I thought, oh, that's okay, I'll put them in the freezer for another time. Guess what? They didn't go in the freezer. Guess where they went? We ate them. I'm horrified that we ate them. So now here I am. It's going to be February, the beginning of February. And oh my goodness. Oh, all the sugar. I got to get out of my system. I got to get it out of my system. Make way for the new. Make way for the vegetables that I'm going to be growing in my garden this year. Okay. So, the whole idea of the new, growing, dying, sacrificing, being made room for the new, feeding the new. Isn't that what we do? In the garden, we chop down the beans, but we leave the beans in the soil so they can decompose and add nitrogen to the soil. Feed the soil for the next planting. It's a fun thing. It's the cycle of life. It's a really fun thing. So whatever you do, I hope you do it and enjoy it. Just don't try to copy what we do. I'm not telling you we need to do that, because we do some pretty strange things, I understand. But do what you wish, and I'd love to see what you do at this time of the year. If you want to make a video response, that'd be really cool. But anyway, whatever you do, whatever you choose to carry into the increasing light, I wish you blessings. Thanks for watching.